You are listening to I Hate Average podcast featuring Jay from the Bronx.
Alright, I'm back. I Hate Average podcast. It's your boy Jay. Thank you guys for checking us out again. Another week, another great episode, another cool guest. Last week we had Harry Tarjanian, the comedian from the Beige Phillip podcast. Great feedback, a lot of good insight. Like I said last week, he ended it on an inspirational note about just keep going, finding things. You're going to have obstacles in your dreams, but what are you going to do? Either you're going to quit or you have to keep going. There's no in between. There's no other option. Either quit or keep going. And I appreciate that again, Harry. Thank you for being on the show last week. This week we have another podcaster. We have Isabel from the Real Women, Real Talk podcast. It's a cool podcast about, the coming of age of women in their 30s and some of the obstacles that they face, and just women telling their stories of relationships and careers and things of that nature. Women in their 30s, just speaking about what it is to be a woman in their 30s in these modern times. Cool podcast. Great episode. We kind of had a debate on the evolution of society, and we talked about online dating. We talked about a lot of different issues, just picking her brain on some things that women in their 30s might go through. So just getting her perspective on things, being that her podcast is based on that. So a cool insight, cool conversation. It's kind of seemed like we forgot we was recording just because he was getting a little opinionated, but it was all in fun. Great episode. Thank you, Isabel, for being on the show. So check out my interview with Isabel. All right, everyone, I'm here with Isabel from the Real Women, Real Talk podcast. How are you, Isabel?
I'm good. How are you? Thank
good.
you for having me.
No problem. I'm glad to have you. I listened to a couple episodes of your podcast and I found it interesting. You have like a different variety of women, and I just wanted to know what made you want to go in the direction of just interviewing women and having real talk with just women.
So it started out primarily as my friends and I, we're all about in our mid-30s about now. We're all turning 35 this year. And so it started out as really just wanting to share some of the many experiences and changes that we've been dealing with and going through as now we're in our 30s. Some of us have kids, some of us have, are married, some of us are still single or going through career changes. And so it started out just wanting to talk about what it's like to be a woman sort of dealing with the stuff that you're going through when you're in your 30s. And then it sort of expanded. I had interest in women who were not in their 30s wanting to just talk and share their stories and what they're doing in their lives and where they're at in their lives. And so I think that it's just an opportunity through my podcast to just give women that opportunity to share sort of their life experiences and their life stories and what they've gotten out of life so far and what they're hoping to accomplish in their next couple of years. I do have intentions to have men. A couple of men have reached out to me. I'm not there yet, but apparently men do also have some things to say about what life is like for them.
Okay. Just the talk. Of course, I understand the real talk part. That everyone wants to have the honesty, but then the real women, I say, okay.
Well, I feel like it's. It is a very honest conversation, but it is also, I'm not interviewing celebrities or anything like that. I feel like these are just women that you would walk into in the street and have conversations with. These are not high profile, A-list celebrity women.
Yeah,
so it's, I guess that's what I call them, real women. It's just, these are your everyday sort of modern day
soccer moms.
Some are soccer moms, some are, in school still,
Okay.
um, just figuring out life like the rest of us. So, yeah.
So,
But so I do plan on having men eventually. I'm not there yet, but
okay, we appreciate. I'll speak for them, and I say we appreciate it.
yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so what are some of the, I guess, with speaking to women, and of course, I guess you get feedback from your fan base. What are some of the similarities that you see within women, within your age range, and some of the unexpected differences that you see with women, like how unique some of you women are?
So I think one of the things that I've learned, um, that is a bit surprising is that, and it's surprising in a good way, thankfully, is that, I think we make bigger differences out of things than they actually are. So I know that for me, like being single in your mid 30s as a woman is very sort of cliche and not acceptable. Um,
You think even now you think so? Like even
yes. Yeah, I don't think society has come that far along that it's still like okay to, I mean, I think women are accepting it a little bit better. Um, I don't think men and women have totally gotten there yet. And so even now as like I date, I like get asked like, why are you still single? Or it's it's a rude question for one.
no, of course, 100% it is 100%.
Uh, but yeah, I don't think it's always intended badly, but it's still like a rude question to ask. Um, but so I feel like what I have found is that women who are in relationships or have kids or have sort of done all the things I guess they're, technically supposed to have done,
Yeah,
that they're not like necessarily pushing single women to like, well, you've got to aspire to this and you've got to do this. It's like, no, go out and like live your life and do whatever you want to do and like don't rush this
yeah,
life. Like it's not
definitely.
meant for everybody and it's not that it's all that it's cracked up to be. Uh, so that's kind of supportive, I think.
Definitely.
But I think also that I think one of the big similarities that I've gotten out of the interviews is that women really do want to support each other. I think there's this false belief that like we always have to be in competition or that there isn't enough for everyone to be successful.
Yeah.
And
I,
I think
I'm sorry.
having those conversations, no, it's okay.
I didn't want to
Um,
cut you off. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh no, you're good. No, feel free. I can talk a lot, so
No,
feel
no,
free to jump in whenever you want. Sometimes you have to cut me off.
no. No, I'm just saying, like from what I've experienced. I've been doing this podcast for, I want to say, 9 months, and just researching and looking up content creators and join the different Facebook groups. I see that women actually are a lot more supportive with each other than probably maybe more so than men are.
Really?
Yeah,
I would.
yeah, I mean, I think once let's say once you gain popularity, I think that's when guys are a little more helpful. But if you if you just trying to find your way, the same time they are, I think like I don't think they'll. If you ask, I don't think they'll say no. But I just think that they're not as uh, available to collaborate. I think women are more available to collaborate uh, than men are. That's just from what I gained.
Yeah. So maybe I don't know. I've always feel like men are just a little more um just willing to help, I guess, without any question or concern. Whereas I think the impression sometimes with women is that that's, like only one of us can make it or only a few of us can sort of like get a big piece of the pie. And I think through the conversations, I've realized that that's not necessarily true. Because I've had a lot of the guests that I've had, I've reached out to their, personal friends, or people that I know. But I have had women who have just reached out to me and said, I really like what you're doing and I would like to just tell my story also. And it's always a very nice feeling when like people are reaching out to you because I only started my podcast in September, maybe October.
Okay.
So I'm still fairly new to it also, and I'm still like figuring out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's still like it's just really nice for people to be like, I like what you're doing and I would like to be a part of it. However, like you want me to be and whatever I can do to help to like make it successful.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So, yes, I'm sorry.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't think I've noticed any differences. I think through the interviews that I've done or the guests that I've had, like I realized that a lot of the differences are really just superficial. Like we still, regardless of our ages or backgrounds or what we do, like we still have a lot of the same fears, the same concerns, the same goals, the same or similar aspirations, or, a lot of us are just trying to live happy lives and get to it how we can do it. So, yeah.
Definitely, definitely. So I guess it's wrong, but I guess mostly women are the same. I don't.
I mean, some of our strategies are different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How we go about doing them, I think, can be different. But I think some of the fundamental stuff is like the same. But we're all different, so and I think that is why there doesn't have to be any competition,
Yeah.
is because we all have our like unique ways and how we want to, or how we're going to get to like our success. And even that, like what some of us view as success, others don't, and so it's like, it's okay because we're not all trying to reach that type of success necessarily. So,
Definitely,
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. So, I guess just to build the ratings, what are some of the things that your guests or maybe you within your friend circle feel about dating within your mid 30s or your 30s? How is it different from what you would expect it to be, or how is it
Dating,
better?
dating in your 30s sucks.
You think so?
I haven't specifically spoken to anyone about dating. Um, Oddly, surprisingly, it doesn't come up as often as one would think, which goes to show we are not always thinking about this. Like we're
No,
not
of
always
course,
thinking about men and relationships, right? Um, we are certainly more than that, and I
of
like to
course.
think that the podcast does that. But I did have an episode of my own where I talked about my experiences with online dating, which is also fairly new to me. I only started this year, maybe early January.
Okay.
And so it's just
Did you want to share what got you to come to that conclusion that got you to try it?
um so some of it was some prompting from outside people, from friends. I was previously in a relationship for about 7 years.
Oh wow.
Like, yeah, for like the late part of my like 20s, so like my mid 20s, up until about 31, 32, I was in a relationship. So I felt, I was finally feeling like it's time to like, put myself out there again and see what happens and, you know, try to make some magic happen. I don't know. Um,
but but
but
what is it? What you expected, or is it something uh, that you
it,
kind of took you by surprise?
I think it did take me like I expected it to be different. I feel like dating changed drastically in the time that I was in a relationship, and like I wasn't like I didn't know what was happening. Like I didn't know what was appropriate or not appropriate anymore. Um, and I'm not exactly like, I mean, I'm not old, but I'm not exactly a spring chicken either. So like
Yeah.
what I would have tolerated or sort of dealt with before I got into my relationship, like is just drastically different from from now.
Of course.
Uh, and so it's trying to like figure out like what's acceptable or what's not acceptable, like now that you're in your 30s, or that I'm in my 30s. I don't know if you're in your 30s.
I am.
Okay. I assumed, but I didn't want to do that. um, yeah, so it was just, it's just different. And I feel like you have to be somewhat outgoing to sort of do online dating.
Yeah.
Um, I, s- I mean, I can be outgoing, but I don't know if I'm outgoing enough for
I
online
mean,
dating.
you create content, so I'm sure you're kind
Yeah,
of outgoing.
this is like the crazy irony that but I talk to people. I'm a college advisor, so like I talk to people for a living.
Oh wow, so definitely.
So you would think it would be better, but yeah, it was weird. And so little things, like I had to figure out, like one of the big things I had to sort of figure out where I stand was like um, men who uh, they don't have their own apartments or men who don't have their own cars. So like
At
I,
30.
I see that's what I'm talking about. Yes.
Well,
Yes.
it depends. Well, the car
These
thing,
are,
I don't know. And I don't know what city you live in, but the car
I'm
thing
in
could be
New York.
okay. So that could be optional.
I'm from the city, but I live in Westchester now.
Oh, so okay, it's not that optional. It's not.
So, but it was something that I had never had to like think about
Yeah.
until I started dating again. And it was a friend actually who had to like have a very honest conversation about like New York City rent is very expensive. Like you're not gonna find too many people, man or woman, who like have their own apartment without having like a roommate
Okay.
or something. So I was like, okay, I guess. But like I've been in New York and I've had my own apartment for like a number of years. So but this was like a discussion that like had to
Yeah.
now like or not a, to be had, but had like I had to figure out like
You had to be
what would
aware of it. You had something you had to be aware of.
like I'm gonna meet people or meet men. I date men who may not have their own place. Uh, and it was just something that I never thought about before.
Yeah.
So, it's sort of figuring out like what's acceptable and what like not acceptable, what works for you or
Yeah.
what works for me. Or
I
even
gotta
having
listen to this episode, Kaya.
yes, you should. So, or like where do I stand with men with no car? Like I live in Westchester. A car is
Yeah.
kind of necessary.
Yeah, over there it is. Yeah.
So it's, a very different dynamic when you're dating someone who doesn't have a car.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you really want to deal with that? Like I don't know. So it's stuff like that. It's simple stuff. It's, simple stuff like that. Or even, like I think I would have never really considered like dating a man with children,
Oh
whereas
yeah.
now,
Well, at over 30, you kind of
right,
is.
right.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how many kids are acceptable at this age, or like how many baby mamas am I willing to like deal with? Like these are things that like I just was not prepared. Like you asked me when I was 20, I'd been like, absolutely not. Like you can't have
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
kids,
But now it's something you just
but
gotta have in
now
the back of your mind now.
right, right.
So,
So
like, what was like your like maybe let's say it's your first night, you're on the app, and you're looking up stuff. What's something that like immediately caught your attention? Like, whoa, what did I get myself into?
um I think how forward some men are, I'm just not used like it's just yeah. Yeah. So it's that took some getting used to. I
Okay.
felt like I felt like I haven't had men just say some ignorant things like that out forward straight right until like in quite some years. And so I don't know if it's like this online platform that sort of gives them the security. I don't know what
I
it
think
is,
it's the wall.
but
Like in the street, you could roll your eyes, or you could even smack them or throw a drink in their face. But yeah, they got the wall, the phone, and they can say how they really feel.
yeah, well, even that too. I did have a guy, and I was like, maybe I just don't know the protocol for like online rejection. Like I don't know. But he had sent a message and I didn't respond. And I guess that was my way of saying like I clearly I'm not interested because I'm not interested because I didn't respond to your message.
Okay.
Um, and then I would say, he sent a second one. I still didn't respond. And then he sent a third one that was very much like, if you weren't interested, you should have just said something. And like you shouldn't just leave men in suspense, like knowing. And
What's suspense though?
I didn't like. Well, this is the thing. I didn't know. I was like, I thought my lack of a response solved that, but I didn't know. Am I supposed to respond to everything? I had to like text a friend to be like, did I mess this up? Because I didn't think I had to respond. But I was told he was just in his feelings about that. So yeah, it's a little, you never know, I guess, what's gonna like set people off or like, what people are not going to like or appreciate. Um,
So
and yeah, yeah, I could go on and on.
nah,
I'm like,
I'm gonna get back to that, but I just wanted to, like, okay, within your circle and within your guests, the ones who your guests or your friend circle who are women who are in their 30s or mid 30s who are married with families, what are some of the issues you discuss with them, or some of the experiences that they had that they shared with you?
um, so of the ones that I've actually interviewed, um, it's a very different. She's actually been with her now husband since right after high school. Like they met shortly after we graduated high school in 2000. And they've pretty much been together ever since.
Wow.
Yeah, which is completely like rare as far as I'm concerned. Like I don't know too many other couples who have sustained that long.
Yeah, not at all.
So yeah, because we're talking. I mean, we graduated in 2000, so you're looking at almost 20 years at this point. Just a little shorter than how long we've all been friends as a group. Like, we all met in high school.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so we've got a number of years of friendship under our belt. Um, so I think for her, it's just it's even more different because she's just like always been wifed up,
Yeah.
for a lack of a better term. So she doesn't even know anything about dating or
Yeah.
online. Like she's
So
just like I've
she's
got.
not a good resource. She's not.
She's just like I could like she works in marketing, so she was just like I could help you set up like a really great profile and put out some nice pictures, but like I can't help you. But then part of that is she like it she feels I guess like it just takes more work to sort of always be interested and sort of keep the excitement going and sustaining that and wanting to still be together after all these years. Um, and because I'm single, of course, I have no idea what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which
but
makes a
yeah,
good dynamic though, because I guess you could share your different perspectives on things.
yes, yes. So yeah, I mean, it always leads to fun conversation. To be on like the other side of the coin, I guess. You
Yeah.
know, yeah.
So for me, this is from my perspective of just looking at the way things are going in the world. I just women within their 30s or mid 30s, they're very career driven. A lot of them are, you know, more educated than their male counterparts. So
Hmm.
it just, to me, I see things is going that people are just gonna have a lot of casual relationships. I don't see marriage on the uptrend. I don't see even having children on the uptrend. So I just think that, it's gonna be a different type of relationship that we're used to. I think the traditional styles are eventually gonna not fade away, but they're not gonna be as prominent.
Um, I mean, okay. I sort of agree, because I think that traditional in the sense like people meet right after high school and like in the my friend as an example, like that's rare.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
we've all pretty much established like that's
Or
people
even
don't like
meeting in college
right
and
at
getting married. That's rare also.
well, yes, I think that's yeah, I don't know anybody that really got married in college either, actually. Now that I think about it.
Yeah,
Um, I think I I think the ideals that people want for marriage are still there. Like I don't think that traditionally has changed.
yeah,
I just don't think that they're as a priority. And so like I feel for me, like in my 30s, like I have still met men who because I will say a lot of the men that I grew up with and went to high school with, they were all married before any of us,
oh wow,
um, before any of the women. Like they were all um, settled down
wow,
with their, even if they weren't married at the time, like they're all married now.
yeah,
Like they were married before all of the women.
oh wow,
Uh, yeah, with, and some of them with children. Like they all had children before us. Um, so I think it's still there. I think that it's not, I think that, how can I put this? Trying to figure out my words. I think because it's not a priority for women as much,
yeah,
that men are like under no pressure to like make these moves.
yeah, exactly. Because it
So
wasn't, it was,
it's not like it's not there, but I think that women are now sort of embracing that they also, because I feel like men are very much like, I want to focus on my career, like I want to have my
yeah,
life together before I start like making any like major like life moves like that.
yeah,
Um, and whereas women were for the most part like we can sort of do both, like we can figure our lives out together and like still have this committed relationship or marriage. But I think more women now are like, no, I too would like to like figure my life out
yeah,
and get my shit together before I like settle down like that. And I think a lot of that is also because women don't want to or don't have to be as reliant as on men as they may have been in the past.
yeah. I think it's
Like
just it's an evolution of society. I just think,
yeah, so because women are definitely like coming up, and
yeah,
like I think number wise, statistics wise, are probably doing better than men economically or financially, however you want to look at it.
yeah.
Um, so and that's with like all the
And
you
you
know
gotta think too.
gender inequality when it comes to money and stuff like that, right? So um, they are, it's almost like now men have to like get up to them to even sort of be considered
I
as
think,
like, as an acceptable mate, I guess. That
yeah.
sounds terrible, but
No, it does sound
it is
like
what
that,
it
but
is.
I'm gonna try to clean it up. It's just, I think it's just men. Of course, men have their lives together. They're happy. They're doing their thing. But I think when men start to settle down, that's when they start to save more money and they start to have more things. That's when they're able to buy a house and keep a mortgage because they're more settled, and which means they're most likely in a relationship. But a single man, they're just going out every weekend, going out with drinks with the fellas, so they don't have their credit is probably isn't as good because they doing whatever, living frivolously. So it's so I think it's just, it's not that men are not at the same level. It's just they're just living a different type of life when they are single.
I guess so. I don't know. I have a friend, a male friend, who we went to college together, and so we're about the same age. And he seems to like have no interest in like getting married or having a family like anytime soon.
Yeah.
And I always find these conversations interesting because, like, for women, we're dealing with like our biological clocks, and like there's a time, um,
Is that okay?
and like the pressure is
2017, is
not.
that real? In
Oh,
2017 is
absolutely. I mean, biologically, yeah. Like our eggs, they don't just exist forever the way that
no, of
like
course. But I'm saying like the mental biological clock. I don't
it.
think
Well,
it's the
because they're all
same.
tied in. I think it is. I mean, we have more option. I mean, we have more options. Like we can, you know, get a donor or have someone else carry the baby or and
Yeah,
be, there's more options to doing it later in life. But the reality is like the longer you wait, the more issues you have with either getting pregnant or like sustaining the pregnancy.
yeah.
So it's a very real.
But I'm just saying, like, let's say, like, let's go back to like the 60s, 70s. Like, mentally, women had it in the back of their mind. If they're approaching 30 and they're single, they're like, oh my god, I gotta find someone soon. If I can have babies.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the mindset of women
No, but
nowadays.
I think it's been pushed back to 40, but I think those conversations are still very much happening. They're just happening a little later.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, but they're still there. There's,
okay.
so yeah, he just doesn't seem to be phased by, and it's just sort of like if it happens, it happens. But he's still very much like,
He's enjoying life. He's enjoying.
yeah, he's still like he still plans on buying a house. Like he's making plans to buy a house. He's making all these plans. And I think as a woman, it was like, well, why would you do all this? Like if you don't have, like, like if you were to get married, like these are things I think that you do together.
Okay.
Buying a house, moving somewhere. Like these are big steps that you would do with a partner.
Yeah.
And it was just sort of like, no, like the same way that if I had an apartment, I guess she would just move into the house or, we would just get it. And it was a very weird conversation. And I just assumed that because I was a woman that like I just did not get it.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's the evolution.
those are like major life choices. But I guess I just see it very differently in that like those are things I would want to do with my partner,
Yeah.
as opposed to like sort of stepping into someone's already established life.
Definitely.
So
It makes sense. It makes sense.
yeah, I guess.
So, all
What do I
right.
still single?
No, I mean it's your point of view. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay, so I guess I gotta really raise my ratings now. So what's you and your guest and your friend circle? What's their views on dating and sex? Is it something that you know you try to hold on to, or is it something that if you're in the moment you just go with the flow?
what do you mean?
Like with online dating, like is it something like if you meet a man and you know you're
I,
dating
I
like
mean, I think that. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I speak for all women or even the women in my circle. But I feel like when you're in your like at my age, I don't know if I live by any rules. If that like I don't have any like 3 day policy. Like if I'm either like I'm feeling it or I'm not. I don't know. Like not to say that I've had one night stands,
yeah, I understand.
but
Okay,
they're
let's
not
say like
all like so I don't know if that's the question,
okay,
but
that's
like, I don't
that's what I'm
have
saying. Like, is it
any.
because I still got the theory that society has evolved. So is there still rules? Is it still like mental rules? Like, I met someone on this dating app. We're having a good time, but I hope he doesn't, want me to come to his place. Like, is that still in the back of your
So
mind, or you just go with the flow?
I think I think those rules still exist for some people. Um, I don't know if they live for me. Um, I think that's the small joy of like being in your 30s is that you start to establish your own rules and not the rules that like you've been taught or someone has told you that like these are the dating rules and in order to be successful or to get into a relationship like these are the things that you have to do. um I don't know, you keep saying this the way society is evolving.
No,
So
that's just my
I
theory that it's evolving. It's evolving.
um, I I think I don't know if that has anything to do with society's evolution. I think that, I mean, maybe it does. Because again, I think it goes back to just women not conforming to the rules of the past, So it's like but I feel like you can just do whatever you want. Like if you have a 3 date rule or a 3 month rule, then like that's your thing and that's cool,
Yeah, that's
you
kind
know.
of what made
But
me
I
gravitate to
I
you.
don't know if yeah, I don't know if that's like for me a thing. Like I feel like I don't concern myself as much anymore with like what men think about me if I like give it up on the first date. Like,
Yeah.
because if any and
But
I
was it ever a thing that what men think of,
oh,
or was it a thing
oh
about what women think about me?
it's absolutely a thing. I think the problem is that men don't see that as being like a two-way street. So, what I don't think has changed, despite, as you like to say, society's evolved, is that there are a lot more expectations for women than there are for men.
Still,
And yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I don't care how progressive some of these dudes think they are. A lot of men still live by these beliefs that like in order to be a woman, like you've got to do certain things or to be a good girlfriend or to be a good wife, that you have to like complete this checklist.
but okay, so
Now,
but
and so you're
just to play
like
devil's advocate,
different.
is it not
You,
on the same token as that women have?
I think it. I no, I think women have their list. I just think women can be a lot more flexible. Like there are. So okay. I feel like so I'm on the chunkier side. I am not like a thin woman. Um, and I know that I have met men who are like, oh, like you would be really, like I would date you like if you were just a little bit smaller, which is like a real statement that men have said. That is not
To
like,
you, they said it to you.
oh, yeah, yeah. Um, Whereas I feel like women are more likely to be like, okay, well, he has XYZ on the checklist. So maybe the fact that he is not in the best shape is like something I can sort of overlook.
Okay.
Whereas you could still have everything. And if this is like a hard sell for a person, like if you don't look the way you want them to look, like they won't even consider it.
Yeah.
And that like that's a real thing. I don't think that that's changed.
No,
That
that's I could agree that's a
you
real thing. That's a real thing.
So I think the difference, so I feel like that still happens. I feel like there's still a lot more expectations that men place on women, like they want you to be freaky in the room, but you still have to like act classy and be humble and do all those things in public. Like those are still real.
No, I could agree with that. I could agree with that.
But I think the difference is that what's changing is that women are, I think, also being a little more cutthroat with their list too. Um, you know, so there, it's like it's. I just had an example and it slipped my head. Um,
But like you were saying, more than one baby mama was a little bit too much for
right.
me. So yeah.
Right. Oh, right. That was my example. Not well, not that, but you just reminded me what I was gonna say, which is, so I think that you have a one night stand with a woman, and you might be like, what kind of woman like gives it up on the first night? Which is a very actual like statement that men have said.
Not lately, I don't think. Not lately.
I, uh, well, I would disagree with that. But I think what
But
they might say is, like they would never like bring her home or like make her their girlfriend or, like because she's already got this thing, I guess, that like she gives it up on the first night. Um, and I think in the past, women would still like be trying to like, oh, well, he might still like me and he might still do this. And, it wasn't all that. Whereas I think now women will question a man's integrity the same way that a woman would question a man's.
mm.
It, did I? No.
uh,
Did I mess that up? I think I did.
no.
But
You basically say,
if you
like
have a
if
one, and I would also be like, I wouldn't want to bring this guy home. Like he's just out sleeping with women on the first night. Like it was
yeah.
cool that we did it, but I also don't see this going beyond this. And I don't know if that necessarily happened before,
No, it didn't happen before.
So yeah, and I think that's changing. I think that women, I mean, I hate to say that like they're becoming more like men, but um yeah, I think that women are now more comfortable or slightly more comfortable with expressing their sexuality with um you know with doing what they want and not
More honesty, with more honesty, I guess.
just like this idea that like women can't be like these multi-layered people, that like we can't be classy and adult but also want one night stands
Yeah.
and want to act a little ratchet, and like we can't be educated and do both or be professional and do this. I think that is changing. I think a lot more women are acknowledging that like you can be all those things
Yeah.
and not feel like something is wrong or like you're sort of some, you know, floozy out in the street doing whatever you want.
so
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 yeah.
with your guess, is this something that has come up where you discussed, just have you guys discussed the evolution of society, of how like how different how different it is being a woman in their 30s in 2017 as compared to in the past? Have you guys talked about that?
Not really, actually. Like I said, it's kind of surprising. Men in dating have not really come up.
But I'm not saying like dating. Let's talk about just
Or even
society as a
no.
whole. Just being a woman in her 30s in 2017, as opposed to the 80s. As how society changes much.
No, I mean it hasn't actually. I mean, it could just be maybe I'm not phrasing it in that way.
Okay.
Um, so that might be something to consider. I might have to ask that question. But I think it's also hard because, like, I mean, the reality is we don't know. I mean, I'm 30 now. Like, I don't know what it would be like to be like a
Yeah,
30, in
I'm
my
just saying,
30s.
like, just
So, no,
person.
I get what you're saying
Yeah.
there. I do get what you're saying. But no, I think that uh, I would imagine it's different, I guess. I mean, we've come a long way, but there's still a lot of work
Yeah.
to be done.
No,
So,
I agree, but I just think it's slightly. I think
so
just things
I
are
will
slightly
say,
better. I think for you
oh yeah,
guys.
I think we're getting there. I think it's a substantial number of improvements have been made. Um, but I will say what I do think is different is that with the interviews I've had, a lot of people a lot of the women that I've spoken to seem to be excited about like getting into their 30s, which is not something I expected because I was not.
Mm.
But a lot of the women that I've spoken to so far just seemed excited about like the sort of next decade, this next, chapter of their life, which I did not expect. I'm always
Okay.
expecting sort of like horror stories about like, oh, I'm 30 and I'm getting old and what does my life mean? And a lot of them are like, no, I'm really excited and I'm looking forward to like this next chapter and really living in my purpose and getting clear on like what they want, which is very different from my experience, but more power to them.
That's true. So,
So,
what was like the original day of your first podcast? And what was your objective? What was like your mindset when you first hit record and you was putting yourself out there? What was your original idea?
um, wow. So it was actually, I was, it was kind of funny. Um, a friend of mine knew we were on this like leadership development team, um, working on like, and part of it was like we all had created this list of like goals that we wanted to accomplish. And one of them was for me, was that I wanted to start this podcast.
Okay.
But I uh, was very, I'm one of those people that's like, I want to research and I want to look and I got to figure out what I need to do and what equipment do I need. And it just seemed like the more research that I did, like the more overwhelmed that I got by like everything that it seemed like you needed. Like, it was just like you need a microphone and you've got to have this and then you've got to have like Skype and I was like I don't even know where this idea came from because I'm not even the most tech savvy of people and this is already like a lot going on. Like I'm pretty certain my phone at that point was like 2 years behind everybody else's. Like I was like this seems like a lot. Um but I would still do more research and like the more that I did it, like I would just get even more overwhelmed by this idea. And then it was late one night at like 10 o'clock, and a friend calls and he's like, yeah, so I saw that you had this goal and I wanted to know where you're at with starting your podcast. And I'm
Oh wow.
like absolutely nowhere. Like I've got tons of like pages saved on my computer and articles that I've read and links that I've saved to like look up different equipment. And I'm like, I don't have the money for like these mini studios that they're looking for me to create.
Exactly.
Like I was not expecting this at all. Like when I initially had this idea. And he was just kind of like, well, it's not that bad. Like, if you really want to do this, like I can get you started in like 30 minutes
Oh wow.
if you have the time. And I was like, absolutely not. Like you're crazy because like I've been reading all the articles and like people take out months think
Yeah, it's true.
get stuff together. So I don't know what kind of miracles you're trying to make happen at like 10 o'clock on a Wednesday night. And I got to work tomorrow.
Right.
So, and he's like, no, like, and he's still like, we can do this. Like, it's not as complicated as you think. And then as you get more experience, and you start to get money for this, like, you can then escalate to like what some of these articles are talking about. And so,
Yeah.
sure enough, he had it up. Like, he showed me how to like record the calls on my phone or, how to like even just do the video, the voice recordings, and uploading it into my computer and like creating SoundCloud, which up until then I had never even like heard of. Um, and so that was it. And so I think the first initial one, I think I deleted it from SoundCloud at this point because it was
Wow.
literally just like, this is me doing my pod. Like, it was
You
like,
didn't know what to say really.
No, it was just like, I was pushed to like do this, and so it's done. And I guess this is like officially the start of it. And
Yeah.
have a nice day. And that was that. Um, so that was like my first official, I guess, unofficial, official recording.
Yeah.
But my very first episode that I did, it was shortly after my birthday. And I talked about basically like self-love, and sort of appreciating like where you are in life.
Okay.
And so that was what it was. So for my 34th birthday, I decided to do, each year I try to do something that's like just for me. Um, and so last year I decided that I wanted to do my first boudoir photo shoot.
Okay. That's different.
And yeah, it is. It is. It was the first time I had ever done anything like that. My friend is a photographer, so she had come over and taken some pictures for me. Um, and that was, I think, to give people an idea of like how I view things and how I see my life, which is that like regardless of where you are, like you should always like love yourself and like appreciate yourself, and like you should always be your biggest cheerleader, right? And
Definitely.
sort of establishing that like how you love yourself and how you um, identify your self-worth will also sort of like set the tone for how other people will love you
Of
and
course.
how worthy, they will see you. Um, so that was part of that, but also like allowing the space to say like it's okay to think highly of yourself and to appreciate every part of your journey, even all of the screw ups and the mess ups,
The
and
bumps in the road.
yeah, like every little bit of it counts and matters and is important, and like you don't have to be perfect to still like appreciate yourself and love yourself, and like you know do you anyway, like regardless of what anyone thinks. So,
Definitely.
and that's sort of what I like to always bring into all of my interviews, like just be yourself. um Other people may not like it, and that's okay, but so
Yeah.
be yourself. Somebody will eventually.
Of course.
Fine.
So,
Yeah.
what's some of the, I guess, besides the initial startup challenges, what's some of the challenges you've seen, since you got started and got a couple of episodes up? What's some of the things that you didn't expect that has happened,
um
or maybe not just a challenge, but maybe something positive, just anything that unexpected that's been
yeah.
happening.
So I would say there's definitely been some challenges. So I would say again, I'm not the most tech savvy person, so
Yeah.
editing
Okay.
takes
Yeah.
quite some time for me.
Yeah.
Uh, so not being tech savvy and like being a perfectionist are not a good combination. Uh, so I feel like I spend a lot more time editing than I'd like to.
Okay.
Um, just because it like I for the first two or three episodes, I didn't know half the stuff, some of the buttons that were used, and like balancing like I didn't even know what some of these terms were.
Yeah.
So I would spend a lot of time like trying to figure something out and then having to research what that even meant. Like I knew there was a
Yeah.
problem. I didn't know.
Saving more pages on your computer.
Yeah, basically. So it would take me like hours to like, I mean, days of hours, like to get episode right, or like to feel like it was right in my eyes.
Yeah.
Like I said, I can be like a perfectionist, and so it's like it probably was good to go like 5 hours ago, but I just was not like 100% happy with it.
Yeah.
So I think I'm still sort of like letting that go with like, just put it out. It doesn't have to be like A1 perfect,
Yeah.
as long as it's like you can hear it clearly and the message gets across, like just put it out. So I'm still sort of working on letting that go. Um, and sticking to the time schedule. I do a terrible job at like getting things out on a weekly basis.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
So, um, yeah, I'm still working on that. I'm still working on that. I don't know how people have jobs and lives and like still do this on a weekly basis. And I would imagine that maybe they're a little more tech savvy than I am.
Yeah.
So maybe it goes a little quicker. Um, but I cannot. So I there was a time where I went like a whole month or two, I think, without putting anything out. Yeah, it's bad. um, so I'm at least trying to get it to every other week.
Okay.
At best, or at worst, however you want to look at it.
I mean, as long as you keep going.
Yeah. I mean, and I think definitely one of the positives is that people are, um, when I ask people to do interviews with me, I haven't had anyone tell me no, that they're not interested.
Okay.
They're always very happily and willingly ready to get on air and let me like ask them questions.
Okay.
And to be open and honest with me, which I think is just really great. But also that people like have reached out to me. Like I remember the first person that reached out to me, like, hey, I heard your podcast and I thought it was really great. Like, can I interview you? Or like, do you want to be on one of my episodes? Like I was like speechless. Like I was totally fangirling, even though they were reaching out to me, but it was like I didn't even think people were listening outside of like family and friends. So like for this random stranger to like reach out to me is very humbling, I think, and very like I'm beyond grateful all the time that people hear what I do and like it and like want to either know more about me or just even want to just have a conversation.
Definitely. Well, Isabel, I don't want to keep you all night. Told you there was a fun episode with Isabel from the Real Women Real Talk podcast. Definitely check out her podcast. It's a little different, something that you might not normally you're not normally used to listening to. So it's a cool podcast, giving a different perspective on life. So definitely check it out. Thank you, Isabel, for being on the show. Whew, we've been doing it. A couple of weeks ago, I took a little hiatus, but I'm back at it, trying to stay on schedule, doing this weekly, and I appreciate your support. I appreciate all the feedback. Keep emailing j@averagej.com. Hit me up on all my social media. I Hate Average Podcast on Instagram. I Hate Average JAY on Twitter. Just let me know what you think, what you don't like, what you like, who should be on the show, all of that. And all feedback is good feedback. So talk to you guys later. Talk to you guys next week.